There is a rule in trading, so simple, so brutally honest, that most traders ignore it. Jesse Livermore didn't, and that's why he became a legend, while the rest disappeared. I want you to imagine something with me. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a market, chart candles rising and falling like tides, price surging like a storm you can feel in your chest. You're not just watching numbers move. You're watching human nature expose itself in real time. Every candle is fear. Every spike is hope. Every crash is regret. And right there, between all the noise, lies a single principle. Livermore's rule that makes trading predictable. Not predictable in the childish sense. Not like price will go here at 10:35 a.m., but predictable in the deeper, more dangerous sense. Human behavior repeats, and markets are nothing more than a mirror reflecting that repetition. Before we dive deeper, let me ask you something. If you stood in front of a market that showed you its secrets again and again, would you have the discipline to act on them? Comment your thoughts below. Now, let's set the stage. I've spent years studying Jesse Livermore. The myth, not the legend, but the man. The man who sat alone in dimly lit rooms, recording price movements by hand. Who watched the tape not as numbers, but as living breath. The man who said, the market is never wrong. Opinions often are. And if I've learned one thing from Livermore, it's this. Markets don't reward intelligence. Markets reward alignment with crowd psychology. Alignment with trend. Alignment with reality rather than ego. That's the heart of today's story. The world Livermore saw, and the one you see today. Now, you might be thinking, how can a trader from 100 years ago teach me anything about today's markets? And the answer is surprisingly simple. Because the markets haven't changed. Only the screens have. Livermore didn't trade tech stocks or crypto. But he traded something far more important, human emotion. And human emotion has the exact same chart pattern in 1907 as it does in 2025. Greed still spikes. Fear still crashes. FOMO still blinds. Regret still punishes. And most importantly, crowds still behave predictably. Livermore understood this with unnerving clarity. He didn't rely on indicators. He didn't worship news. He didn't chase predictions. He watched behavior. He watched repetition. He watched the rhythm of the market. And the more he observed, the more one rule kept emerging, a rule so powerful, so brutally logical, that it became his compass in every bull market, every crash, every sideways grind. Before I reveal that rule, let me walk you through the psychology behind it. Because Livermore never believed in rules without understanding their emotional roots. The trading world is not random. People say the market is unpredictable. They throw around words like chaos, roulette, luck, but Livermore argued the opposite. The market is never random. It merely moves from one psychological extreme to another. Think about that. When traders panic, they become predictable. When traders chase, they become predictable. When traders hope, fear, hesitate, freeze, they reveal patterns. These patterns don't tell you exactly where price will go, but they tell you how the crowd will behave. And that alone is power. I remember the first time I understood this. It hit me like a punch, because suddenly, the market stopped being a mystery. It became a story of humans who refuse to learn and repeat their mistakes like a loop on an old tape machine. Livermore mastered that loop. He didn't trade prices, he traded crowds. And crowds, he said, are creatures of habit. Once you internalize that, once you stop trying to outsmart randomness and start observing patterns of emotion, the market starts making sense. Not perfectly, not mechanically, but predictably. Predictable in its behavior, not its direction. And this leads us straight to the rule that explains why most traders lose. The rule that allowed Livermore to short the 1907 panic, to ride the 1929 collapse like a wave, and to walk into history books as one of the greatest traders alive. But before I give you the rule, I want you to ask yourself something. Have you ever seen the same mistake repeat in your own trading? The same impulse entry, the same late exit, the same fear, the same hesitation, the same stubbornness? If you have, then You've already seen the rule in action. You just didn't know how to read it yet. And that's why we're here. Because once you understand this single rule, your entire approach to trading will shift. Not tomorrow, not next week, but instantly. Because this rule hits you at the core of your trading identity. I'm going to take you into Livermore's mind, into the inner chamber where he made decisions that echoed across financial history, into the emotional battlefield where discipline fought ego, into the quiet moments where he learned that markets do not change, only traders do. If you want trading to feel predictable, you must first make yourself predictable. That's the truth. Livermore left behind, quietly, painfully, and with the weight of an entire lifetime etched into every syllable. And as we close this chapter together, I want to take you into the emotional core of this rule. Not just the logic, not just the theory, but the soul of it. Because trading isn't a science. Trading is a biography. It's the story of who you become when the market tests your patience, your belief, your discipline, and your resolve. Let me pull back the curtain for this final section. Everything. We talked about the crowds, the emotions, the cycles. The predictability of human nature leads to this one realization. The market becomes predictable only when the trader stops being chaotic. Not the price, not the trend, not the volatility. The trader, you, me. Every person sitting in front of a screen, breathing a little heavier when the candle turns red. Every person who feels that surge of adrenaline when green appears. Every person who wants to catch the move, avoid the loss, protect the win, and prove themselves right. That's the battlefield, and that's where Livermore's rule either destroys you or liberates you. The rule laid bare the breakthrough moment. Livermore's foundational principle, the one that made trading predictable for him, wasn't magic. It wasn't math. It wasn't a secret signal whispered across Wall Street. It was simply, a trader must act only when the market confirms his expectations, not before. Never after. In modern terms, wait for confirmation. Trade in harmony with the prevailing trend. Stay out when the market gives no signal. This rule sounds small, almost unimpressive. But psychologically, it's a monster. Because, to follow it, you must kill the part of you that wants to predict. You must silence the voice that wants to jump early. You must override the instinct that screams, don't miss the move. And you must be strong enough to walk away when the market is whispering uncertainty. Livermore learned this rule through pain, through losses that shattered him, through victories that misled him, through cycles that humbled him again and again. He once said, "Men who can be right and sit tight are uncommon." Do you feel the weight of that? Not men who can be right, not men who can sit, but the combination, being right and then doing nothing. Because the trend is already doing the work. This is where predictability begins. The emotional landscape of Livermore's rule. Let me speak to you. Trader to trader. Human to human. This rule confirmation over prediction sounds simple, but emotionally, it will test you in ways no strategy ever will. Because waiting hurts. Watching the move begin without you hurts. Entering late, but correctly, feels wrong. Staying out when nothing is clear feels like laziness. Letting the trend play out without interfering feels like surrender. But that's exactly why this rule is the dividing line between traders who survive and traders who don't. Following this rule is not a technical challenge. It's an identity challenge. It forces you to choose between being the hero who predicts and the professional who waits. Livermore chose the latter, not because he wanted to, but because the market punished every attempt to do the opposite. The final cinematic realization. Picture this with me. A trader stands before the screen. The room is dim. The only light is the glow of the chart moving steadily. The market is whispering uncertainty, but his mind is shouting urgency. He wants to leap. He wants to prove himself right. He wants to catch the move before it's too late. Then he remembers Livermore. He remembers the rule. He remembers the pain of being early, the regret of being late, the cost of impulse, and the quiet dignity of discipline. So he waits, and in that silence, he feels something shift. Not in the market, in himself. The chart doesn't become predictable. He does. His reactions become steady. His decisions decisions become structured. His behavior becomes repeatable. And because he becomes predictable, the market finally becomes readable. That's the cinematic truth. That's the emotional climax. That's the lesson. Livermore etched into history. The closing message: your turn to act. If you want trading to stop feeling like chaos, stop bringing chaos into it. If you want the market to reveal its rhythm, stop forcing your own. If you want to trade like Livermore, stop trying to predict and start learning to wait. The rule is simple. Act only when the market confirms your thesis, not when you hope, not when you guess, not when you fear missing out. When the market confirms, only then, always then. Because confirmation is not just a signal. It's a psychological contract, a moment where your discipline and the market's behavior align. What about you? Do you struggle more with entering early, exiting early, or waiting for confirmation? Comment your answer below. Your struggle might help another trader reading it. I want you to walk away from this video not with noise, but with clarity. Not with excitement, but with control. Not with prediction, but with alignment. Remember Livermore's truth. The market is human nature on display, and human nature is predictable. If you learn to read it and discipline yourself to wait for its confirmation. Thank you for walking through this journey with me. Trade steady, trade patient, trade with intention, and above all, trade like you understand yourself.